Welcome to Truth Be Told, the, the podcast about how to be genuine so you can live your truth. I am your host, Pierre Casongo. Today, I am honored to have an exclusive guest on our podcast. She is a Jamaican and Indigenous mother and activist. Tigra Lee was born in Edmonton and has called Lloydminster home since 2015. Her work, personal life, and volunteer endeavors are focused on community development through fostering opportunities, relationships, and collaboration. Tigra Lee is an advocate for systematic change, reducing bureaucracy, and increasing access through their work to amplify the voices of marginalized people. Tigra Lee works in Alberta's energy sector, where she engages in Indigenous partnerships and opportunities to balance inequity in the energy field. She recognizes the need for diversification and retraining program and believes Indigenous land stewardship in the pathway for a greener tomorrow. Tigra Lee's focus on balancing family with everyday life brings a new perspective on change to the Lloydminster area. As a mother of three, she knows the importance of healthcare, social services, and leaving a sustainable and supported future for our children. She incorporates the green values of doing politics different by putting people first. Her goal to leave a better, kinder place for all people, especially the younger generation, by passionately building a better future for Lloydminster while collaborating towards sustainable solutions today. Listeners and viewers, it is my honor to welcome Tigra Lee Campbell. Tigra Lee, welcome to Truth Be Told.
Thank you so much, Pierre. Thank you for having me today.
You've been an activist for how many years, and what really caused you to say, this is my call, this is this is what I want to be known for?
That is such an interesting question. I feel like as racialized people, I feel like we've really had to advocate for ourselves for our whole lifetime. And I technically did not start my quote unquote activism journey with LVE until 2020. So I I've always advocated for justice and I've always advocated for fairness and to advocate for others and to raise awareness and amplify the voices of others. And in 2020, with the murder of George Floyd, I, you know, everywhere was in an uproar across our our nation, our world, really. Like we were definitely at the forefront of the world stage. And I I knew at that point that I wanted to do something. I wanted to create change. At this time as well, there was the volcanic eruption in Hawaii. And I just remember staying at home and being like, I am an able body, I want to go out and I want to help. I have a voice, a pretty loud one, and I want to use it for good. So I there was already a protest that was arranged and organized here in Lloyd. But there's a few other small rural towns around Alberta, or sorry, Lloydminster, Vermilion being one of them. It's about 45 minutes away. So I was like, well, we shouldn't have just one protest. We should keep this ongoing. We really need to create change. We really need to be loud about this. And I saw a post that was put out in the Vermilion community Facebook group, somebody that was wanting to organize a protest. And um, the backlash was, he was just getting really like pulled through the mud. And I had reached out to him and I said, you know what, I will gladly be a part of this. I do want to be a part of this. Um, and so we met up a couple days later. And during that time, I had also reached out to um, Tigra, who organized one of the largest protests in Canada in Edmonton. And that's how our collaboration had started. So Brad Gallimore was the person that I had reached out to in Vermilion. And it turns out that we knew some of the same people. He went to my the same school as my brother in Edmonton. So we knew a lot of the same social group, which is strange. So that's kind of how my activism had started. It started as a tiny little protest in Vermilion, and it just took off from there. I felt very passionate and I feel very dedicated to my work. I was completely out of my comfort zone though, but public talking is, it wasn't really my forte. And so to do speeches and go to different events, it really took me out of my comfort zone and challenged me, but in a good way. It really boosted my confidence to know that, even though I wasn't good at this or it wasn't something that I would seek out to do, that with practice that I could do it, which means that other people can do it as well. Um, so yeah, that's how my activism started. And that's how LVE started as well.
In the mission that you have of like being active, like it. Yeah, no, I'm just I would want to paraphrase also something that that the Lord and Mister and Vermilion for Equity group is stating, and I'll just part of it is um, ignorant is saying ignorance is the enemy and education is our friend. Like, well, part of to me, part of it is like it seems that in as an activist, you want to educate people for reasonable causes. Yet, why is it that so? No. Why would you, as an from an activist perspective, why do you think that there is so many that are so resistant to hearing why you have this certain cause?
Mm, that is a very good question. I feel like it is intersectional. Um, and I feel like there there's a difference between being willfully ignorant and just uneducated. Um, but I mean, when we're talking about things like racism or white supremacy, or defunding the police, these things, people tend to feel like you're placing blame, and nobody wants to admit or hear that, they feel like they're doing something wrong. And I also feel like right now there are certain buzzwords that are going around that just really set people off. They've been trapped in their social silos, um, just hearing this repetitive misinformation or disinformation over and over again. So, when one of these words is, said, they're immediately triggered and immediately put off. Um, and I feel like change is never comfortable. If you're going through a change and um, everything just feels, pretty chill, like you've been doing the same thing, you probably should mix that up a bit. But change is
Yeah,
uncomfortable for all of us. So I
yeah,
feel like that's where the uncomfortability comes from.
yeah. So you like to, like the late Congressman John Lewis said, get yourself in some good trouble.
Yes, exactly. Make yourself uncomfortable. And,
Hmm.
when we're talking about educating, the education has to start with ourselves
Hmm.
because these systems are so deeply ingrained in our society and ourselves as individuals, that the work needs to start with ourselves first, or else it's never going to work.
It's not saying that, every like white people that they see is racist, but it's saying that from a minority's perspective, there
Hmm.
will be from a minority of face like racism that certain that white people will not face in their life.
Hmm.
Like whether it's dealing with the police or dealing even in real estate. Like even real estate bias will exist. Like I've
Hmm.
seen documentaries or uh, on CBC talking about how like how certain people get their houses assessed when they see that the homeowner is black, and then what
Hmm.
happens when the homeowner is white. Same house, different owner.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And there's also these ideas of like the of wokeism or defund the police, which you're absolutely right. Like just it's all about like just how do we find these solutions so we can move forward. It's not always that it's not always about just point fingers randomly. It's we want to work together to find a solution, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that is the thing. What are the solutions? Sometimes we can just get trapped in these cycles of, negativity and, complaining. Um, and in our minds, we are spinning these wheels, but in reality, we're not moving forward. We're just staying still because a lot of these conversations are not solution based. And it's scary. It feels bigger than us. And there are so many intersections that are crossed, when we're talking about systemic racism or systematic racism, we're or um sorry, institutional racism or individual racism. There's so many topics, and then we're crossing the lines of the into LGBTQ plus. We have to differentiate between our racialized experience and the indigenous experience, and really moving forward always in the spirit of reconciliation and trying to view things through a decolonized lens. So there is so much to unpack. And really what it comes down to is empathy. You know, we need to actually listen and not just wait for our turn to speak, and listen to what is being said, and to use that moving forward without putting our own interpretation on it. Just listen.
Yes, yes, thank you so much. Like that's actually something that's a major word that is lost. Listen,
Hmm.
listen.
Hmm.
We put on these goggles and see the world through our own eyes, and you just uh, and put on these headphones, and we only hear the tunes that we want to hear, And I realize the irony because I've got these giant headphones right now. But it's just like, can we just take a moment, have conversation, be civil? Like, take the moment to hear to just listen. What's the other person's take on this, and understand.
Yeah. Or at least try to understand. Or if you don't, it's okay to not understand from one conversation. And that's fine. Every interaction that you're going to have with somebody might not be it. But if we all continuously have these conversations in a beneficial way where people are able to understand, because if you start to go out with somebody and, um, I hate using the word aggressive. I honestly, I hate using that word, but right now I don't have any other word to use. If you are, being super aggressive, and you're just speaking to somebody in a way that just shuts the conversation down. Like at this point now, they're not even receptive of anything that you're saying. That's a problem. But if we can speak to people in a way that they understand, which is always easier said than done, um, speak to people in a way that they can understand, then, they might move from the conversation that they're having with you to another person. That person, they're having a conversation, they're a little bit more softened up, they receive a bit more, and they move on and they continue their journey. And that's one thing that I really had to identify. Actually, somebody had told me this in the beginning of my activism journey, was that everyone is on their journey. And some people are further ahead and some people are not. So you just have to know when's appropriate to have the conversation, when's appropriate to continue the conversation, when you may need to just stop the conversation, so it's about understanding yourself, but also understanding different types of personalities and how you need to address them.
Part of why we also fail to be social, to be somehow civil. I sometimes wonder if it has to do with the social media. Like, as much as social media can be a an advancing tool, it also like it's got its pros and
Mm,
its cons.
hmm
Like, in when the with the right causes, like, you can be do so much good with it. Yet
hmm
with in social media, it's like we're all like at some point certain people can, some of us can be just these avatars who decides to throw stones at each other when we're living in glass houses.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
agree.
Yeah.
It's social media, I agree. It has its good and
Mhm.
its bad.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like social media, like look at Ahmed Aubrey.
Oh
That
God,
case would not
that's
have moved forward
yeah.
without social media.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
in that instance, social
Mm-hmm.
media really worked. Like they would have gotten away with murder. And in my
Yeah.
opinion, they did.
Yeah.
Manslaughter is
Mhm.
not a charge.
No,
So
that was cold-blooded murder.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. If you watch that video, he literally went around his truck, got his gun, came back and shot him.
That
So
no, poor man. No, Amon was just jogging in just for health, and that father and son were hunting him down. He was doing absolutely nothing wrong, and they just take him down with a rifle or
yeah,
gun, or either way. It's just like, there's no way that you can debate that's cold-blooded murder.
exactly. And that like it shouldn't be a debate. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like and that's just one of so many instances
Mm-hmm.
where black men and Indigenous men and women
Mm-hmm.
are murdered and there's no consequence,
Mm-hmm.
and without social media, that that would it be it because the laws where he is, you have the right to bear arms,
Mm-hmm.
there's open carry laws, they were trying to circumvent what actually happened. And without social media, that case would not have moved forward. So I think that there are really good ways that social media could be used, but information bias, um, you can succumb to information bias really easily on social media just because of the
Mm-hmm.
algorithms. And then to be trapped into the social silos, like not only are we having our own physical social silos, but now these digital social silos on social media. And the conversations are ridiculous. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't tell me that the way that you are speaking to me on social media is, I would hope not. I hope you
No,
don't talk to
no,
people in real life like that because that's
no one talks to
terrible.
me.
Yeah.
There's like there's some videos that I'll watch out, and there's no way that conversation. Yeah, I agree with you. Like,
Mhm.
no way that conversation is taking place in real life. Like, I'll be watching, for example, a Anita, like, like, why is this? Are these comments on an Anita Baker video?
I know. It's wild though. But they won't talk. I hope that you don't talk like that in real life.
No.
But these are like the misconceptions or
Mm-hmm.
ideals or rhetorics, however you want to put it. These are the tropes, that we do here in real life. They might not be carried over the same way with the same language,
Mm-hmm.
but you can see the vast amount of our population that have these extremely harmful ideals, and how fast misinformation spreads. We can use George Floyd as an example
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many good ones,
Yeah.
that like the fact that he was murdered on national television
Yeah.
in the middle of the street.
In
you know
broad daylight. Like, and this was and we're not talking about like one or two witnesses, like
no.
on an entire full view of
Yeah.
people like yelling at the police officers, saying, no, like, get off him,
Yeah.
check his pulse, you are killing him.
Yeah, exactly. Like people wanting to step in and help him that were not able to step in and help him, and Derek Chauvin, he had other, like, charges, probably not charges, I can't remember the word, but he had done other things similar before
Uh-huh.
George Floyd. So there's that. The other cop that was just standing there with his hands in his pockets, not allowing anyone to help over what a counterfeit, quote unquote, counterfeit $20 bill. And then the amount of other, like, disinformation, like I don't know if you heard that one where he held a pregnant woman at knife point. Either the knife was at her throat or the knife was at her belly. I heard a couple different ones, but
I
she actually she put out a statement saying that this was untrue and that if you heard anything, like, you should report that comment. So all of these things were flying around.
No, I had not heard about that. Like, my focus was on just that case, but that
Mm,
being said, like, just with the 20, like the counterfeit, I don't know, $20 bill, like, I mean, we could sit here and discuss it, but my point of view is like, where really is just like, do we really know where he got it from? Do is so
right.
that's either that's up in that's up in the wind for everyone to talk. And like doing going on to with an assumption at this point is not going to do any good, because
Exactly.
it's not going to move any. It's not going to move the needle forward. What
Right.
good is it going to do?
Right.
There was these two values and mission that I was looking at for the Lloydminster and Vermilion for equity. I
Hmm.
feel so much they go hand to hand. The value of learning and acquisition of knowledge, and the mission to promote an economic and social equity. Like if you learn about, if you learn, and then you'll be able to promote economic and social equity.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that is the core of us, is like I had mentioned before, doing the learning and educating ourselves, so that we are able to adequately educate those around us, um, and then use that knowledge to promote and to advocate for equitable spaces, and however, that looks like for your own community. Um, and the learning and the education, it has to start at our tables at home. It has to start at work, in our lunchrooms, at the water cooler, and there is room for it all. If you're not a great one-on-one talker, conversations really scare you. I know a lot of us suffer from social anxiety. You know, share the posts on Facebook, do read your own books, listen to your own podcasts, listen to your own audiobooks. There's so much out there that can be consumed. And, you know, once you start to unlearn these things, it's like a whole wall. It's like a whole wall that comes down, and you're like, oh, microaggressions? I didn't know about microaggressions until, I started hearing about people touching your hair. It's happened to me my entire life, people touching my hair.
Oh
Uh,
my God, so much has happened to
Literally.
me so many times.
And I can't even imagine having hair on your face. So, like, do people try and touch your facial hair? Or are
Huh?
they, yeah, oh,
No, no, no,
no?
no,
Good.
no. But as a kid, everyone was trying to, oh yeah, was trying to get me to change my ways, and oh, you know
Yeah.
what? You gotta grow an afro, or you gotta dye your hair like Cisco, or just like
Yeah.
any character that anything, any one that they would see like on Much Music, because they thought that I would be like some in junior high school. Everyone wanted me to be like some acting like some rapper or some R&B singer,
Right.
and I refused.
Yeah. It is.
Mhm.
I get that on so many levels in junior high and high school. I I dealt with that a lot too,
Mhm.
where you're kind of held to this standard, and oh, Tigra, you're black but you're not black, or
Oh
you don't act black. Like, I didn't
yeah.
understand that. And you know like, I like to listen to heavy metal music, I liked piercings, I liked heavy makeup, so it was because of that I didn't act black, and I always got introduced like that too. This is my white black friend Tigra. And it
uh
was just so confusing because I
and
was like, I was raised in a black household, I identify as black, but now
uh-huh.
I have people telling me that I'm not black. Like, it was very, very confusing. And
Oh,
it
it just
really,
yeah,
yeah, it fosters
so
this.
ignorant.
It really is ignorant, and
Yeah. Oh,
it is the biracial experience as well. I know
mm,
that there's quite a few of us that have
yeah.
experienced that, like not being black enough for the black community, but also not being white enough because we're not
Mm-hmm.
white. So that sense of identity and connection is somewhat misconstrued along the way because you don't really feel connected.
To me, being Black is not monolithic. You know
No.
that you can't just you can't just look at all Black people and assume that they're all the same. There
Yeah.
are there are a million ways to be Black. Everyone
Yes.
has their own identity.
Hmm. I agree.
It's just like one just one does not apply. One shade does not apply for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And it's a good thing that my those kids in junior high school didn't meet me when I had my dreadlocks.
Right? You'd be too
And
Black then. Cross the
oh
road.
no, but again, that was that no, I grew out my dreads like years after. Oh, that
Mm-hmm.
was after I finished university.
And then you grew them out?
And what? Oh, after university, I grew up my dreads.
Yeah.
This whole idea that you always have to of conforming. I
Mm,
don't like that. Just be you. You have to subscribe to what you are. I'm like, for
mm-hmm.
example, I'm the no, like I'm not the guy that dresses up like like in FUBU and baggy outfits and so forth. And you know,
Yeah.
I'm the guy that I'm actually to be honest, I'm an old school soul. I
Mm.
got a Marvin Gaye album.
Yes.
In
Marvin
fact,
Gaye.
three.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you're Marvin Gaye fan as well.
I love Marvin Gaye.
Oh, the What's Going On album, I feel best
Mm,
illustrates, well, best reflects the year 2020.
right.
Oh my God, like you know that that when he was making the song, I think in 1970 or 1971, Berry Gordy was saying, "No, like this is horrible. Like this is not going to sell. Is going to destroy your career." And Marvin wrote this because of all the turmoil was that was going on at the time,
Mm,
and as a result, like he released the single, and then not only was it a critical success, it was doing well commercially. And then Barry Gordy went back to him and said, "Can you make it an album?" And they say the rest
wow.
is history.
I had no idea. That is that is so awesome.
Yeah. In fact, for years, it was in the top 10 list of 500 greatest albums according to Rolling Stone magazines.
Oh.
But in 2020, the list got revised so that the there could be more current artists, and
Mm,
it included people like artists like Kendrick Lamar and Adele, and What's Going On by Marvin Gaye knocked no, knocked took the number one spot previously occupied by the Beatles, uh, Sergeant Pepper, and the Lonely Hearts Club.
what?
Yep,
And that was in 2020.
yep,
Oh wow. I had
yep,
no idea.
yeah. Well, it's because it's one of those albums where it's where you can listen to it from beginning to beginning no, I mean, sorry, from beginning to end, and every single is good. It's so good. Like he
Yes.
talks about police brutality. He talks about about even economy, about taxes, about drug use, about the
Yeah.
war, and
Yeah.
even about the environment.
Yeah.
Mercy, Mercy Me is actually one of the most beautiful. Is just way ahead of its time. Who was talking about the environment in 1971?
Right. Exactly. Well, you're reigniting my fire for Marvin Gaye. I'm gonna have to give this a listen again.
Yeah, sorry. It should be all about you, but I'm talking
No,
on and on. But I, the, but he's just made that album so legendary. I get passionate about things like these old school,
mm,
like these old school artists that make music that stand the test of times. Like these, like him, Stevie Wonder, Teddy Pendergrass, Gladys
hmm
Knight, Patti
mm,
Bell. You know,
yes.
the old school is where like Earth, Wind, Fire. Those artists, you can listen. People listen to them like over 40 years ago. You know what? Today, the music sounds as great as ever.
100%. It does. And we are still talking about the same things. Like we have to, I feel like we have to celebrate our wins. Like, you know, we should celebrate our wins, but we're still talking about anti-Black violence and anti-Black racism and anti-Indigenous racism and
Mm-hmm.
defunding the police and police brutality, you know.
Yeah.
So
The one thing that we've not feel that we've not really touched on is, well, we failed to touch on about the and and indigenous causes. Every
mm,
child matters. Well, in recent years, more awareness has been made because of boarding schools and the discovery of all the of oh, of what of those bodies
mhm,
BC, right?
mhm.
Like I will admit, like I wasn't aware of that, and I'm embarrassed to say so.
There is so much that
Mhm,
I did not know that I have learned over the last few years, and I feel like that's where that like
mhm,
that embarrassment or almost like shame. You're like, I've lived here for my entire
mhm,
life. How did I not know about this?
mhm,
And there's so many people that are going through that exact same thing. And we didn't learn about, I don't remember learning about residential schools in school.
mhm,
What I did learn about the Indigenous experience now in
mhm,
hindsight was all a fallacy. Like there is some truths to it, but it
mhm,
was not even close to being adequate. And to this day, like people still ask me, what are residential schools? What were they? So
mhm,
and even slavery,
mhm,
Canada had 200 years of slavery. And that is a topic that always comes up too, like, oh, good thing we weren't as bad as the United States. We're just better at hiding it. We were better at whitewashing our history and from removing these things from teaching them to our children. But these things absolutely did happen
mhm,
here. And the Indigenous experience is, um, I feel like it is really good that this awareness is coming out. We have quote unquote allies. I don't really like that word, and people are beginning to become more educated, myself included. But there are things that I feel like are just being seen as a check in the box as well. When we're talking about the TRC, like, are you doing that just because it's just checking the box? When you're doing your land acknowledgement, are you doing that just because it's a check in a box? Or where is that actually coming from? What space is that coming from? Ingenuity, or because you see everyone else doing it? Is this some sort of trend or fad to you now?
You should no. I think you should do it because you actually want to learn. It should be genuine. Like I,
Mm,
you don't. To me, I don't like. I don't. I just feel that we need to know about this. Like as much as it is uncomfortable, you do have to learn about history. And it
absolutely.
cannot be ignored.
And if you care about this country and where we live, if you
Mhm.
care about the healing of this country,
Mhm.
then knowing it's knowing our history, and it's knowing the history and believing it. It's knowing the
Mhm.
history and empathizing with, and being able to empathize, and to to say that, I I I've learned about what happened. Um, I understand now why certain things, we're seeing certain things today. And because I know how it was born. I know how it was bred,
Mhm.
so understanding and really listening. Not what A lot of what we're going to learn is not going to come from history books. We've been shown that. We know that our history is not going to be taught correctly from history books, but you know where it is? From the countless stories and um, knowledge from storytellers and knowledge keepers, and knowing who to speak to at the right time. Not every Indigenous person is willing to share their experience, and that's okay because it was horrific. But there are a lot of Indigenous peoples who are willing to share that experience and to share knowledge and wisdom with us. And that's where a lot of our learning is going to come from. 100%. Like social justice and equity, there are so many ways to be a part and to be active of the movement. Um, there's so many intersections that could be addressed. It's not just a one size fits all. Everybody has to be out on the front lines with their megaphones. There's so many other ways um, that we can contribute than just the boots to the ground um, parts that are most likely shown on, the media. There's a lot of background work that needs to be done. We need website builders. We need grant writers. We need, the storytellers. We need event planners. Like there's so many areas that you can contribute to.
Absolutely. Like just anybody can be welcome and just and participate. Just
Mhm.
have that. I'd say just have that passion. Learn how to contribute. You had like that famous one of us famous like march like 4 days. Like what was it, the Bonneville to Edmonton?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a walk for addictions and overdose awareness. So yeah, last July I walked, and two other ladies walked with me. Well, it was myself and another person walking with somebody else, but it was a trio. It was a trio of us, including Ford. And we walked from Bonnyville to Edmonton for a cause that it's so close to us. We were all in recovery. We've all, suffered from addictions in some way or another. And we've also all lost people from addictions as well, ourselves and our communities. And um, so Chantel, she had lost her brother, and she immediately had asked me, do you want to do this march with me? And I said, of course, yes, I do. And but because of certain protocols, we had to wait a year in order to honor him in that way. So we waited the year and we reconvened and brought in Ashley. And in that time, there were so many other deaths to substance poisoning in our communities. Um, and there's so many reasons. There's so many reasons around that. And I know that COVID did play a really large part in that as well.
Uh-huh.
So we took to the streets and um, we stayed in a spirit of um, pretty much ceremony the whole time and just praying and um, using our voices and enduring suffering. It was so hot those 4 days. And just enduring that suffering so that we can have a voice for the voiceless and raise voices for those that aren't able to. And it was a really humbling experience, and I can't wait to do it again this summer. This summer we will be walking from Lloydminster to Edmonton. It's roughly the same length of time or the same kilometers, but it's not just a one time like you do it and it's done. Like these conversations need to be had all the time. We need to address systemic racism and what that looks like in regards to addiction. We need to address classism. We need to address um, the prison industrial complex. It's, like everything, it's intersectional, and it needs to be ongoing, not
Yeah.
just one time. It needs to be the forefront of conversation at all times.
Yeah. And you mentioning the industrial complex, like the part that specifically like in uh, like what part of like the industrial like prison industrial complex would you
Hmm.
say?
It's right at the beginning, when poverty and classism, like there are a plethora of youth in the system that will get picked up on petty crime charges so that they can go to jail. So that because they know that they will have somewhere to sleep and they have, quote unquote 3 meals a day. I don't know if you've had meals in jail, but it is awful, awful. But so it's really starting, some you can even say that starting in the hospital with our Black and Indigenous babies being apprehended in the hospital, and then our youth that are opting to go um to jail or to juvie because
Mhm.
the situation there is better than what's at home. We have children that are taken out of the home to be placed in foster care because these parents can't afford their children. And instead of funding our parents, we're funding a system that is systematically racist. So we're starting, when we're talking about the prison industrial complex, we're starting right as babies. We're starting with them being taken and apprehended. We're starting with them choosing to go to juvie because they're getting better, or they'll have access to a bed every night, and then we're talking about um, crime, which is a byproduct of classism. It's a byproduct of poverty. It's a byproduct of systemic racism. We're talking about mental health. There's just so many other aspects that are involved in the prison industrial complex, and it's not there to rehabilitate. If it was, we would not be seeing you know, the the cycles. If it was actually there to rehabilitate, there are so many other models that other social democratic countries use that are effective. And what
That's
we're
a
using
major
in
statement right
Canada is
there.
not. Mhm.
Yeah, that's a major statement right there. Are the I don't like that rehabilitation because all because prisons will all they do is just take no, someone and just mass rack them up and put them in the jail. But in the end, our no, no so they bring up that major point, rehabilitation,
Yeah.
and that's a major part where like during their sentence, I'm on the same page. We're really on the same page.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
are the jails really made out to really rehabilitate the inmates? I don't know. In fact, sometimes they're just sometimes just kept there to made to let's keep the a criminal inside, but are they gonna like made to get out a better person?
Exactly. It's a reactionary system.
Yeah,
It's not a preventative system.
yeah.
If we're looking at preventative measures, why is our healthcare always cut? It's the first thing to go is our healthcare. Education is always cut. Our social services are always the first to be cut, and those are the preventative measures. And um, yeah, I don't know how, um, like what your viewpoints are on our justice system, but I 100% agree that we need a whole reform of it. I don't understand why we are evolving, and it's okay for us as humans to evolve, but our systems are not okay. Why are we using such an archaic system that has never been revised since its implementation here in Canada? And what was it implemented for? To police Black and Indigenous bodies. And that's exactly what it's still doing to this day. It's not a broken system. People always say that it is broken, but it's not. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to protect white people and property and police Black and Indigenous lives and other racialized lives.
And now I understand that there was some news lately that you are now running as you've announced your candidacy as an MLA for the Green Party for Vermilion-Lloydminster-Wainwright. Is this correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I will be running in the next provincial election in that riding for Vermilion-Lloydminster-Wainwright. It's such a long one. So I am really excited to bring change to these communities. Um, I know that we have our UCP candidate that is running. I'm believe that there is an Alberta Party candidate that is running as well, alongside our NDP candidate. And I I wasn't really going to say yes when I was approached and asked to run in this in the election. First of all, I didn't know if I had the time. I have 3 kids. I work full time. I run a nonprofit, so I didn't know if I was going to be able to put in the time commitment. But um, you know, when when he did approach me, he said I can make my campaign as big or as little as I wanted. And and I said, okay, like if I if I can if I can move forward with the motivation that I have on hand at that time, that works for me. And we've been talking about PR. We've been talking about UBI. We've been talking about our healthcare system. Our healthcare is messed up out here in rural Alberta. It's wild. There's no doctors. There's some emergency rooms where they don't have emergency doctors. Yeah, in the hospitals.
What?
Yeah, it is.
Huh?
It's wild. Like I know in St. Paul in Bonnyville, yeah, there were periods where is from this state to this state. There's not going to be a doctor in our emergency rooms. It's
So
really, really
no
scary.
doctor in the how can that be?
Because there's no doctors. When
Well,
the our
what was it?
UCP,
Oh God. Sorry,
they
go on.
that's okay. So when the UCP decided to give these corporations tax breaks, we needed to get this money from somewhere. And there was a whole payment restructure to the doctors and nurses' salaries, which pretty much it looked like it cut everything in half. So the time you had per patient was cut in half, but then the amount of money you got per patient was also cut in half. So it really was detrimental to our healthcare here. Um, we're seeing it all over the place now with longer wait times in hospitals, with calling an ambulance and sometimes not even having it show up. And that is such a scary thing that actually happened to me here in Lloyd. We thought somebody was overdosing outside of my house, and we called an ambulance, and we waited over an hour. And when we called back to get an update on the ambulance, they said they were still in Vegreville, which is over an hour away from Lloydminster, and they didn't even show up. We ended up canceling it. Thank God she wasn't overdosing. And we were able to get her stabilized. But the, if she was, she could have potentially died, so we're seeing things that are being put in place that are working against us as well, like with the privatization of our healthcare. I don't know if you saw, oh my gosh, Pierre, I don't know if you saw those vans that Danielle Smith wants to make. They're they're getting these vans. I need to send you this on Twitter. It's the most ridiculous thing. They're gonna outfit these vans with like straps and anchors that can hold um stretcher if needed or wheelchairs for non-emergency medical use. And the drivers of these vans can be retired medics or skilled laborers. So instead, our solution now, it's like buying new clothes instead of doing laundry. Instead of just taking our $12 billion surplus that we've saved and funding our healthcare system, we're just going to use more money and create new things that don't make sense, that we're just wasting our money on. So I'm really, that's one thing I'm really passionate about when running in my own campaign is, really shedding the light on things that and policies that were put in place that are extremely detrimental to Canada as a whole, but really to rural Alberta as a whole. Um, and uh, and showing the alternative. What's the alternatives that we can put in place, the policies that we can put in place that will more align with Albertans, that will save us money, save us time, and negate and circumvent certain situations that are reactionary other than preventative.
There's so much that you are passionate about, and
Mm,
wow, really hope that your your campaign works well for you.
thank
And
you.
that's it's just astonishing. All of these facts, like it's just really, I don't know, like healthcare really, like it really speaks true to you, huh?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's just such a huge problem. Like I can't imagine showing up to a hospital, with a broken leg or you have a wound of some sort and them saying, "Sorry, we have no doctors." That's just
No,
such a
that
strange thing in my mind, seeing as how we have public health care.
I'm sorry. It just takes the words out of my mouth. I
That's
just,
okay. Same.
yeah,
Same.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry for the stuttering and all. It's just like it just
No.
if I sound like I'm having a hamada moment, it really befuddles me. It's
Hmm.
the best
Hmm.
way I can describe me.
I know.
But
That's
oh
my thought process all day sometimes.
yeah, but in the end, I have these three critical questions for you.
Okay.
First one, what does living your truth mean to you?
What a good question. Living my truth. What does that mean to me? Um, living my truth. Oh, that is such a good. Please hold. I need to think about this for a second. Living my truth means it means living genuinely. It means unmasking. Um, a lot of us have to navigate through this society wearing masks. And it means I want to see leaving a positive vibe or leaving a space better than when you got there. But that can look like so many different things. Like you can, drop a bunch of truth in a space and people are all up in arms. But I feel like that would still be left better than how I got there, right? Um, yeah, just living your living your life to the fullest of your potential and not forcing anything, letting everything fall into place how it should.
Second question, how does living your truth and being authentic make you a better person?
Mm. I think that it makes you a better person because to live your authentic self means that you need to do your own personal work. You need to unlearn these subconscious biases. More often than not, you're having to do some sort of trauma work, which is really, really hard to do. Um, and, you know, love yourself and take care of your inner child. And I think that that will just help you navigate and look through a loving lens.
And final question, what advice would you give to someone looking to embrace themselves?
That is such a good question. Really watch your self-talk. Um, and we all have periods of time. I'm really bad for it. Sometimes my self-talk gets really out of hand, and you have to just take that conscious effort. And even if you are getting down on yourself, to just immediately turn around and um, say the physical words that are the opposite of that thought. Um, and Speak to your inner child. Think about you as a little kid. You're that 9, 10, 11-year old. How would you want to be spoken to and taken care of and cherished? And there's still a part of us that really yearns for that and craves that every day. So take a second and, play with your inner child, talk to them, and really nurture them.
Words of wisdom from Tigra Lee.
I don't know if they're wisdom, but I tried.
Well, you know what? I enjoy listening to you telling us, yeah, your truth. But
Thank you so much for having me.
you're welcome.
Mm.
If you are looking to become an activist in the Lloydminster and Vermilion area,
Mhm.
you can go to lvefoundation.com. And you can follow the group on Instagram. The handle is LVE_foundation. And also the Tigra Lee's website for her candidacy as a candidate is www.greenpartyofalberta.ca/Tigra Lee. Any other link that you can, and also before I forget, they also have there's also a book club on the LVE Foundation if you look up on the website, and also I believe it's the Vermilion Unites for Equality Facebook group. Is it correct?
It is. You can still find us with Vermilion Unites for Equality, but we do have our group. It is Lloydminster and Vermilion for Equity, which is our private group. And then we have a page which is still Lloydminster and Vermilion for Equity. I think it's /events, I think. But that's an open page where everyone can join.
Tigra Lee, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
All right. Thank you so much. And to you, the viewers and listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, stay true.